Let me do that. Okay, so we're recording now. Welcome all. This is our live implementation workshop in which we get to take a look at the KonMari process so far in your space, in your closet, and talk about the struggles that come up, talk about the fears that come up, the attachments that we have to our things, the reasons why we all have so much stuff, even though our stuff really tends to suck our time and drain our energy. There's a reason we all still have so much stuff. And that has to do with the attachments that we have to our things. That has to do with the fears of feeling like we will need those things moving forward. And those are things that come up for everyone who goes through this process. They come up for me when I went through the process. They come up for everyone that I work with. So we're just getting started here, and I'm going to pull up, give me a moment to pull something up here, and I will, and we're going to get moving. But the way that I wanted to start us off actually is, let me just close down one thing. Okay. The way I wanted to start us all off was really feeling into our joy, because what I've found happens for a large percentage of people who start the KonMari process is that we're not accustomed to picking up an object and saying, does this object bring me joy? How does it make me feel inside my body, right? We're not used to that. I was certainly not used to that when I started the process. And I thought it was a little bit crazy that a thing around me could inspire joy or not inspire joy. And of course, that makes so much sense to me now. And in the work that I do in Feng Shui, the reason that I get into the KonMari process is because it's efficient, it's effective, and it creates the space that you need to have in order to open up your life to potential, in order to open up your life to the opportunities that are waiting for you. And so in the work that I do with my clients with Feng Shui, you can shift your furniture and you can place cures and you can really do some wonderful things in your space. But if you're starting off from a place of having packed spaces, packed bookshelves, packed closets, packed drawers, which is the space that most of us are starting out from. That is the space that I was starting out from, even after a decade of studying Feng Shui and consulting. That's the space that I was starting out from, because I had been purging and purging and purging for years and years without ever having a respite, without ever making that like final progress, which is what the KonMari process allows you to do. So do I still spend time on my space? Yes, because that is something that I love to do. But really, the time that you have to spend after you get through this whole process is time picking up the things that you've taken out, which is something that you will always have to do. And then it's kind of a fine-tuning process of really feeling into your joy and allowing yourself to yourself to realize that your joy will shift as you grow and change, and as you let go of certain things that no longer serve you, then some things that used to bring you joy will no longer bring you joy. We are all at a different point in our lives, and as we grow and change, that your stuff, yourself grows and changes, and our stuff, when you don't go through a process like this, our stuff can really tend to hold us back because it always has to do with our past. So today we're specifically going to talk about the struggles that come up when you start this process, the attachments that we have, all the different issues and reasons why we get stuck in this process, because I find that it's really easy to get stuck in the KonMari process, because this process of going through our things is a process of putting our past in order. And when you get into your past, there's always sticky things that sometimes you're ready to let go of and sometimes you're not, and you do in your own time. So since we're all kind of settled in and we have a bulk of people here, I'm so glad we have so many great people here today. Thank you for joining me. What I want to do is I want to walk you through a little visualization that I do with my clients and around feeling your joy. Because when I started this process, it was hard for me to feel what joy felt like in my body. I just wasn't used to paying attention to that. And I find that when I work with my clients, maybe half of them, a pretty big percentage of them, have a really difficult time feeling into what joy feels like in their body and being able to pick up an object that they may or may not be attached to and really listen to their body instead of allowing it to go right to your mind, which is what happens for all of us. So we get into the reasons why we have all of our things rather than paying attention to our joy. So I want to walk you through a visualization around feeling your joy. And so if you're in a place where you can close your eyes fully or almost fully, then go ahead and do so. And I want you to take a couple nice deep breaths in through your nose. Slow your breath down a little bit. And allow yourself to come into your body. Allow yourself to let go of whatever's happened so far this day, whatever thoughts are on your mind. Allow them to float through your mind without attaching onto them, simply letting them float by. Take some nice deep breaths and just become present in your body and notice how your body feels right here in this present moment. Do you have some aches and pains? How is your energetic body feeling, which generally is something that you would feel around your chakras, all the way from your tailbone, the root chakra, all the way up to the crown of your head. How's your energy feeling? How are your energy levels? Just notice how you're feeling in your body. And remember to breathe. And now if you are in a place where you can pick up an object that you don't love, then go ahead and do so. But for those of you who just want to keep your eyes closed, you can really just bring to mind an object that you don't love. Just bring that into your thoughts and focus on that object. And notice how it makes your body feel. When you pick up an object that you don't love, or when you think about something that you don't love, where do you feel that in your body? Let go of any reasonings that you have going on in your mind around why you still have the object, and just pay attention to your body. And oftentimes it will bring up a discomfort in your body. Oftentimes it will feel like a downward movement, like a weight. Some people feel it in their heart space. Some people feel it way up in their throat chakra. Some people feel it down in their second chakra. It's different for everyone. It's different for every object. But just notice where in your body you feel that, and what does it feel like? Take another nice deep breath. And it's probably not the most comfortable feeling you've ever had before, but just sit with it for a moment and really presence that in your body. And take another nice deep breath. And now I want you to bring to mind an object that you love, or you can even pick up, if you have something around you that you know you love, you can go ahead and pick that object up. Or just bring it to mind. And notice how your energy shifts in your body. Notice where you feel your joy, where that resides for you in your body. Most of the time that feels like an upward movement. For some people, it's just a warming in the heart space. Notice what your joy feels like when you think of that object, and sit with that for a moment. Remembering to breathe. And soak up that joy. Smile maybe. Really feel how that object makes you feel in your body. Generally, it feels pretty darn good, so soak that up. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And in the chat bar, if you have access to the chat bar, which it looks like most of you have joined us on the computer, so that's great. If you have access to the chat bar, go ahead and type in what it felt like when you were picturing an object that didn't bring you joy, that you didn't love. What did that feel like in your body? Was it a weight? Did it feel heavy? For me, that feels like my joy feels like a flame, like a fire in my heart space. And when I pick up something I don't love, it's like a damp, wet towel on that fire. Yeah, so Christine says it's kind of tightness in my chest. Yep. Downward and upward moving energies. Interesting. So Michelle, is that almost a sinking, right? Yep. So that it's like a weight. It felt stuffy. And the interesting thing, if you've followed me for a while, you'll know that I talk about how everything around you is attached to you energetically. So it's like this little thread that's attached to you. Every single thing that you own, whether it's in your space, whether it's in your attic, whether it's in your mom's basement, wherever that is. And I had stuff in all of those places when I went through this process. Wherever those things are, they're energetically attached to you, to your energetic body. And when you own a lot of things that are stagnant, that are stuffy, that you're not using actively, that you don't love, it can tend to draw down your energetic body, to almost physically weigh down your body. And it can make it hard to get motivated. It can make it difficult to move forward, to make progress. It can really hold you back. And so as we lighten the load, as we go through our closets and we begin to lighten that load, that process, it's inspiring, it's energizing. It's because you're listening to your body and you're saying yes to your own body's joy. You're saying no to the things that weigh you down, and you're saying yes to your joy. So now in the chat bar, go ahead and let me know what it felt like when you had something or you were thinking about something that brought you joy. What did that feel like in your body? How was that different for you? How did that shift? So Michelle's talking about, clarify for me, Michelle. She's saying used to your own body's joy. You get used to feeling it. Maybe that's what you're saying. So let me know what it felt like for you, your joy in your body. And if that was easy for you to feel, because I work with a lot of people where it's really difficult for them to feel into that joy. And that was difficult for me early on. So I actually have a technique that I'm going to teach you that is another way to say yes, to listen to your body's yes and your body's no when you have a hard time feeling the joy. So joy felt warm, bright, upward moving. Yeah, Michelle. A tingling in my head near the ears, actually, Christine says. And that's really interesting. I worked with a woman who felt that tingling in her head around her joy. And then as she practiced it more and more, it moved down for her into her heart space. And it's neither here nor there. It's going to feel different for different people. But for that particular client, it was really interesting because she had a lot going on in her head, as so many of us do, with just so much going on and the distractions around us, all the input that we have, not just from our physical space, but from all the things that we have to do, all the people in our lives. Oftentimes there's a lot of input. It can be very distracting and it can bring us up into our head more. And so for her, it was interesting that joy started to sink down into her heart space instead of being up near her head, which may or may not happen for you, Christine. And, it feels different for everyone. So Michelle said, warm, bright, upward moving brightness at Ajna. And I'm not a yogi. I practice yoga, but I am not really a yogi. So either that's a typo or I think that's a yogic term. So let me know if that is. Oops. For some reason, somebody's sharing their screen with us. I didn't think that was possible. Lawrence, are you sharing your screen with us? I didn't even know you were here. Let's see. Let me turn my options on. Let me see. I think somebody's accidentally sharing a screen. I didn't actually know that participants could share screens, but that's fantastic to know that. And let me see what I can do about that. So Lawrence, if that's you, then go ahead and unshare your screen. Lawrence is changing his desktop. Hi, Lawrence. Can you hear me? So let's see. You're viewing owner's screen. It says you're viewing my screen, but it's not my screen. Let's see. Oh, there we are. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. Thanks, Lawrence. Who knew? I didn't realize you had so much control. Well, that's good to know. So all kinds of different, again, we got a new message. Oh, the third eye. Yes. Yes, of the chakras. Christine says, I'm an academic, so I live in my head. Yeah, so oftentimes people will feel that up in their head. So I wanted to really feel into that joy, because that tends to be one of the big things that come up for people around whether or not they can get through their things very quickly, whether or not it's easy for them to pull out all their tops and go through them one by one. And sometimes that can take a lot longer because it's difficult to feel into your joy. And the more you practice, the easier it becomes. So, and I see some nodding heads, so I'm sure a lot of you are experiencing that as well, that it gets easier, that practice. And now, having been through my whole home and now really feeling into my joy whenever I bring anything into my home, it becomes like second nature, and it allows you to know whether or not you feel joyful about different things that are going on in your life, different, different people that are in your life and different commitments that you have that you've said yes to. It allows you to say yes to those things that you really love and that you find joy, and it allows you to say no to the things that don't, so that you can say yes, so that you have time for the things that bring you joy. So it's really a powerful process. And we all on this call are really at the very beginning of just going to the closet. So what I want to do is I have a number of different questions that come up, a number of really frequent struggles that come up for people that I can go through, and I will go through. But really what I want to do right now is I want to open up the floodgates of your questions. So if you have questions about or struggles that you have in your particular space, when you go through your clothes, you can tell me where you are in the process, and I can bring you on in audio, or you can type your question in as well. So if you have a question, if you have gone through your space, you said, this part was really hard for me, this part was really easy, go ahead and put that into the chat bar so that I can address the issues that you all are having, because I can address the issues that come up for all the people that I've worked with, and I'll go through those until we have our own questions coming in. But really, I want to be able to speak to you, and I want to be able to answer your particular questions that you're having. So learning Zoom is the first time. Unable to start, Claudette and Lawrence. Okay, gotcha. Yes. Lawrence, I love that you're using Zoom for the first time and that you accidentally shared your screen with us. It was a very nice screensaver. So unable to start. So let's talk about that, because it's so common when you start this process. It's so common to find it really difficult to start. And I'm working with a client right now who is going through that same thing of having a lot of difficulty just taking those first steps. And she has it all outlined for her. She has all these resources at her command. But when you have a block, a mental block, you can have all the resources that she's paying for all of these resources, and she's still having a really hard time. So you can have invested your money, you can have said, yes, I'm going to do this, and you still will have blocks that come up, mental blocks for you, that make it difficult to move forward, that make it difficult to see the progress that you want to see. And so we have to be patient, because we all work through our own things in our own time. But there are things that you can do in order to motivate yourself, and also in order to unstick the stuck places. So let's talk about that, because this is really important. If you can't start, then you can't get anywhere. So progress before perfection. First of all, that came up with a number of different clients for me yesterday, is that just getting into the process and getting it done, instead of thinking, I'm not going to be able to do it perfectly, so I don't want to start. So that a lot of people fall into that trap. But what I want to say around the motivation part is in the closet makeover itself, for those of you who are in the closet makeover, we start with our intentions that we have for our space. We start with our goal, the end destination. We start with why we're doing this process, the big why. Why is it that you're interested in making over your closet? Why is it that you're interested in having more space? What does that look like for you? So, if you don't get into that why, if you don't really dig down into the why, then you're going to have a hard time going anywhere, because life happens and you have an hour and a half, but something else becomes more important. And so you do that other thing. Like, life happens and it's going to bring you lots and lots of things to do. And you always make time for what's important. So if it's not important for you in your mind, if you haven't really drilled down to why it's important, then it's really difficult to take that first step. It's really difficult to motivate. So for this particular client, and for Lawrence as well, I believe her motivating factor was that the clutter in her home drives her husband crazy. And I think Lawrence might understand this, because I believe that the clutter in his home, although it's really, he only has a certain place where he's allowed to have his clutter, drives his wife crazy. So correct me if I'm wrong, but the interesting part about that is I've worked with a number of people now who wanted to work with me because it was affecting their relationship negatively, because the clutter or the stuff, the full spaces, the fact that your spaces devolve into chaos so easily when you have so much stuff, that's what happens. And I've worked with a number of people who started working with me because that drove their partner crazy. The problem with that is that that's not an internal motivation. You have to really feel into, okay, so how does that affect you? How does that make you feel? Are you doing this because you want your relationship to feel more connection, because you want to do something for your partner, because you want to show them that you're really willing to do what it takes in order to make them happy? Because that's something that's kind of starting to get down into the why, the big why of what that is. But really, you have to feel into your own motivation. What is it? And so for this particular client, Lawrence is saying, yeah. So for this particular client that I'm working with, she said, well, when I clear out my closet, and she's very attached to her clothes. She loves her clothes. And, this is my closet, and I never really loved clothes. So my closet is pretty small in most people's standards. But for her, she has a walk-in closet. She has a lot of clothing, and she has space for a lot of clothing, and she loves clothing. But she said, okay, well, why am I doing this? Why is it really, what does it have to do with me, not with my husband, but why is this important for me? And she said, well, when I'm able to let go of the clothing that doesn't bring me joy, then I'm going to have less laundry to do. It's going to take up less of my time. I'm going to have to do laundry less. And she's a person who's constantly running from one thing to the next. And so that goal, that destination, that ideal lifestyle where you have the time, where your time is your own, where you get to choose how to spend your time, and you have time to do the things that you love, that is something that comes out of this process. And you'll start to feel it when you do your closet. And so that's a big one. That's a big motivating factor. Well, I want more time. I want more space. I want my time to feel like it's my own. But the point is that you have to feel down into your own particular motivation. Why are you interested in this? Why are you here? So Lawrence, for you, I'm happy to bring you on the line if you want to talk about that. Or if you have an idea and you don't want to get on the line, you can put it in the chat bar also. That's totally up to you. I don't want to put you on the spot. But I'm happy to bring anybody on the line for you to ask your question as well, because sometimes having that face-to-face is a lot easier and more helpful than just the chat bar. So feel free to say, I have a question for you, and I can bring you on. So that motivation, like having a hard time starting, that's why I always start with the big why. Why are you doing this? What's your goal? What's your intention? And that's both so that you know if you've succeeded at the end, so that you can measure your success, but it's also so that it motivates you, so that it lights a fire. Because if you don't have that fire, you're not going to do it. Right? You're not gonna take the time that it takes, because it does take time. So you have to have some serious internal motivation, and you have to get really clear on what that is. So for me, I feel like the time piece is so huge for everyone. So I want to touch on that again briefly, but the time piece is so huge because before I started the KonMari process, before I did my closet and then moved on to the rest of my house. And for those of you who have started in your closet and you are excited and you are inspired and you are motivated, I highly recommend that you read Marie Kondo's book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. And she has a second book, Spark Joy. They are easy, quick reads, and they are so sweet and just to the point. They're fantastic. So I highly recommend reading those. That being said, if you want more of the feng shui take on it, because I'm doing this, the KonMari process for me is a means to an end. It opens up opportunity, it opens up space for the energy to flow. And in feng shui, it's all about the flow of energy into your life, into and around your things. And when you have that flow of energy, all of a sudden life clicks. You notice the coincidences in life. You are open to the opportunities. You see the open doors that are in front of you. That's what this process can do for you. So I highly recommend for those of you who've started it and are inspired to read the book, to keep going through the process. Most of you here are on my list, and I always have things, emails coming out around the feng shui piece and also around the decluttering piece, because mostly I want the clients that I work with to already have started this process, to feel that energy, to feel that inspiration, to have that energy coming into their life. But the time piece is so huge. I worked with a woman who was a mom. She is a mom of 3, and they're 8, 12, and 14. So they're school age, but she's a stay-at-home mom. She volunteers a lot of her time. And even though she's not working outside the home, she has an incredible amount of work to do. And I know that any stay-at-home mom, which I was for a short period of time, will resonate with that, because there's always more to do. There's always more laundry and cleaning up and all of these things. But for her, she felt like she had 0 time. Like her time was not her own. And when she started going through the process, even just when she got through her closet, but then when she got to these different areas of her life, all of a sudden, if something, instead of having the mail stack up and thinking, I don't have time for that, she would just deal with it. And it would take her 2 minutes. She dealt with the things that are easy to deal with, instead of letting them stack up and letting them take up your mental time, because it's not just about your physical time. It's about how you spend your mental time. And when you're spending your mental time worrying about all the things that you have to do, or thinking about all the things on your to-do list, that time really adds up. And we as humans are really, really good. There's really some interesting studies coming out that I read recently around the amount of time that we spend thinking about something else other than the task at hand. And it's about 50% of the time we are thinking about things that we are not doing. And so whether or not we're happy has very little to do with the task at hand, and very much to do with where your mental space is. If you've gone down those rabbit holes of negativity that we can all go down, that are so easy to go down. But all of a sudden, when you start to make spaciousness in your space, then your mental clutter, you have a lot more space there as well. And it allows you to choose the thoughts that you want to think. It allows you to choose what you want to identify with, what thoughts you want to identify with. So I'm kind of going off on tangents here, but one thing that I find really interesting around the space piece and creating this spaciousness in your life is I love Kate Stillman, and she's a mentor of mine. I've taken a number of her courses. For those of you who know her, she runs yogahealer.com, and she is a yogi and an Ayurvedic practitioner, and has kind of boiled those things down into a lifestyle, how you use those things in your day-to-day life. And so I have not studied Ayurveda in any sense. I have just seen it boiled down. It's very interesting. And so I approach the space piece from the feng shui side of things, from the energetic side of things. And she approaches the space piece, the KonMari method, from the Ayurvedic perspective, in which there is one of the elements is ether, and that is space. That's spaciousness. And what in the Ayurvedic tradition, what she says about that is that the space piece, when you don't have enough space around you, when your spaces are packed full and tight, then you don't have the space to be able to see, to feel your own intuition, to be able to, again, see the opportunities that are coming your way, to notice the coincidences in your life that are constant. And when you don't have the space around you, you can't see those things. It's like you have these shutters on your space. It's like blinders so that you can't see the broader picture. And that's not true for everyone who has packed fill space, but it is really so easy for that to happen when your space is overly full. And so, you know, I just have countless stories around the clients that I've worked with. So if you have questions coming up, put them into the chat bar. If you want to talk with me live, I would love to connect with you live. It's such a great opportunity for you to be able to ask your questions about your space, about your closet or not. And we're going to get into the closet a little bit. I know we've been talking bigger picture, so I hope everyone's okay with where the conversation has gone. But if you want to direct it at all, put your question, put your comment into the chat bar, because I would love to see what's on your mind, see what struggles are coming up for you. But let me take a look at, I have some frequently asked questions that come in, some areas where people often get stuck in their space and in their stuff. So let's take a look at some of those. Okay, so I'm actually going to share my screen with you for a moment because I want to show you some images of a woman that I worked with who did the closet challenge that I did about a year ago, which is very similar to the closet makeover. And then she ended up doing a course that I run called Clear Your Space, Clear Your Mind, where I help you through the KonMari process. And we also integrate the feng shui pieces. So she ended up doing both of those things. And one thing that I wanted to talk about today was how to make your closet into not just a closet that has clothing in it that you love, but a closet that's kind of a mini oasis, a little respite, because everyone has this need for a space that is all their own. And only some of us have that physical space in our homes, like have a full room that we can call our own, or have a full nook, or have a full desk, whatever it is. Everybody's space looks different, but everyone can benefit from having a space that is all your own. That's really just the things that bring you joy. And so this process is so fantastic because not only can you surround yourself by the clothing that brings you joy, but you can make a little mini oasis. And Marie Kondo is the one who really opened my eyes to this. I believe she talks about it more in Spark Joy in her second book. But the idea is that all the things that you love that you don't necessarily want to have in your main space that are really to do with you, then those things can go in your closet. And I ended up, after I did the KonMari process in my closet that I shared with my husband, I ended up saying, you know what, I want a space that is all my own. And so because I was KonMariing the rest of my house, spaces were opening up because I was letting go of all the things that didn't bring me joy, which even after I had been purging for my entire life, but the past decade, I've been purging and purging and purging and never really getting anywhere. But with the KonMari process, because you're keeping just the things that bring you joy, it's a very different criteria than any other decluttering method. And that's what makes it so effective, because it doesn't matter the number of things. It only matters whether or not those things bring you joy. And in the process, I like to tell people, well, you're never getting rid of anything that you love. So when you come up against that block and you're still like, oh, but I don't want to get rid of that. Well, does it bring you joy? Because if it brings you joy, you should keep it. But the point is, for all those little things that bring you joy that you don't necessarily want in your public space, you can put them in your closet. So for me, I ended up shifting my closet into my home office, which is my oasis. The whole space is mine now, because originally it was an office that was also a guest room, so it had a futon, and that didn't really work. So then it was fully my own office that I can really function in, and I can record videos in, I can do everything that I need to do. But I moved my clothing into my home office in half of the closet. And in that space, I really made it my own. So my closet used to be packed full. It used to have piles of clothing flowing out of it. It used to be just blank white walls. It was not a space that I considered a space. It was not a space that I put any energy into. And it's really a lovely space to put some energy into. So I'm filming today so that you can see my closet, but I also have some screenshots for you so that you can really see more of it, because it's kind of hard at this angle to see it. But I put up in there the artwork that my husband really doesn't like, that I don't want to put up in our common space because he doesn't like it, but that I love. I just love it, you know, so I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm going to put it up in my closet. It's such a good place for it. So I'm going to screen share with you so that you can see a few different things, both my closet and then a closet of someone else who really made a nice oasis. So let me, here we go, screen share. Give me a moment to find what I'm looking for here. Okay, so I'm sharing my desktop, which has a number of different things. So let me just see if I can present so that you can see the full thing. Maybe that's a good idea, maybe that's not. So go ahead and type in the chat bar if you can still hear me, because I can't actually see the chat bar, but I think this is the best way to do it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take a look at that to see if you can. I think we're still good. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna open this back up, maybe. Okay, so I have a couple slides. So does it bring you joy? Yes, okay. So I'm going to share with you, first I'm actually gonna share with you my closet. So this is my closet now. And I have, like I said, the artwork that was actually handed down to me that Nate just didn't love, my husband didn't love. And I put it up in my closet. It's such a great place for it. And I have space in my closet, which was not anything that I ever had before. And this is my closet, and I have some built-in drawers. It's a very simple space. It's a very small space. It works for me. What your closet looks like, what works for you is going to be different. And this is my home office where I have my closet and all of my work. So I wanted to show that to you, but then I want to go back to this closet. So this is the closet of a woman that I worked with, a dear friend actually also, who did the closet challenge and then ended up taking the course that I offer. And she, on the left-hand side, you'll see her closet beforehand, which is completely overwhelming. And this is a friend who I would have never expected her closet to look this way, knowing her. And so I was surprised, but it's just the way that closets look oftentimes when you have a lot of stuff in there that weighs you down, when you have stuff that brings you joy mixed in with stuff that doesn't bring you joy. Closets can tend to look like this. So it's not a very easy closet to work with in that it just has a hanging bar. It doesn't have any other sort of storage. So that's a little tricky. So it's not like it's an easy space where she can just plug her stuff into some nice built-ins. But this is probably the case for a number of us, right? Not every closet has some lovely built-ins. And the middle picture is her after the closet challenge, when she'd cleared out all the clothes that didn't bring her joy. She'd also cleared out the tubs. You no longer see those, which were mementos and photographs. They were actually tubs of things that she had stored in her parents' house, and she was recently moved back to the country. So she reacquired all of her things, and there they were in her closet. So after the closet challenge, she'd pulled out anything extraneous that was not clothing, which is something I recommend all of you do. If you have a closet that has clothing mixed in with anything else, pull all the extraneous stuff out. Whether or not it remains out for the long term, it doesn't matter, but pull it out so that you can just see and focus on your clothing. So that's after the closet challenge. And then over the course of the course itself, she was working on, you know, her entire space and KonMari in her entire space. But this, I want you to take note of this image on the right-hand side of the screen, and then I'm going to come back to just talking to you because that's my preference. But you can see that she's created a mini oasis in the closet itself. She had lots of space. And she didn't, when you open up a closet that all of a sudden has a lot of space in it, it's a little bit jarring. And it makes us feel like we should fill in that space. And that's not exactly what we're going for. So I want you to take note of this right-hand picture where she filled in the space with a little altar. And for this particular house and this particular client, this was the relationship area of her home. In Feng Shui, there is a Bagua map that you place down over the floor plan of your home, and it identifies for you all these different areas. And I have an image of it. So this is the Bagua map, and you place it down over the floor plan of your home. This is the floor plan of my home. And you then have places in your home that are these representations of different areas of your life. So for example, in my home, the back right corner is the love and relationship area for any home. But in my home, that's the kitchen. In her home, it was her closet. It was a long, narrow home, duplex. And so the main part of her relationship area of her home was her closet. And she was really on the lookout for the right relationship. And she's one of the more amazing people that I know. And she's been through a number of relationships, but she is just a catch. She's amazing. And so she was really looking for this right relationship. And so in her relationship area, she set up this altar and now that space is more a reflection of what she wants in her relationships. She set up an altar that has to do with where she has pairings of two things instead of single thing. So she has two images up on the wall instead of a single image, which might reflect a single person. So there are ways in which you can create reflections in your space that are reflections of the way that you want to be living in your life. And there are ways that you can create an oasis in a closet, in simply a closet, that are really, really powerful. So I'm going to come back to all of you. Just make sure when I'm showing my screen there, I feel like maybe I'm not 100% sure you can see me and hear me, but you're all still here. So looks like we're good. Okay. Worked great. Perfect. So I wanted to share with you a couple different images of how you can really make your closet not just a place that houses your clothes, but a place that makes you so happy to open up your closet doors, curtains in my case, open it up and see what's inside. And it's so fun to open it up. And when you start your day out that way every day, it's a powerful way to start out your day, because how you start out your day is a reflection of how your day will go, how the rest of your day will go. So one thing that I wanted to bring up there, which I know that one of my closet makeover participants was struggling with, is that she had a lot of other stuff in her closet that wasn't just clothing. And so the ability to just pull that stuff out so that you can see your clothing. And she'd actually already been through her clothing in a previous iteration. And I think maybe went through it again, maybe not, I'm not 100% sure. But just pulling all that other stuff out and allowing space for just what you need in that space is really powerful, whether or not some of that stuff gets added back in. In the pictures you may have noticed with the client that I worked with, when she made that closet, that relationship area, into a little oasis, into a little altar, she did put back those tubs after she'd gone through them of mementos and photographs. So they still live in the closet. They're still taking up the same amount of space that they were before, but the closet works and functions entirely differently. So that's one of the issues that people struggle with when their closet houses more than just their clothing. And in that vein, I want to talk about one thing that comes up for a lot of people is that we all have clothing stored in many different places in our home. And this was not something that I realized until I went through the KonMari process, and you have to bring it all together. But I had a tub of out of season clothing in my basement, which is probably true for 90% of you. It's really common to pull your out of season items out of your closet just so that you have space for your in-season items. And that has been one of the huge life-changing things for me. So if you're resisting this, I want to tell you that it is huge to only have all of your clothing in one place. In my particular closet, I don't have space for my outerwear. I live in a place where it gets really cold in the winter. So my outerwear has a separate place, but aside from that, this is all of my clothing. And the nice thing is, whenever you cull down to only the things that you love, all of a sudden you start having space for all of those things, space to store all of those things. It is amazing, but I promise you that will happen to you if you continue through the process. So I really encourage you to incorporate all of your clothing as much as possible. You know, I have my outerwear elsewhere, so it's not like it's 100%, but bringing all that clothing into the same place has been huge for me. Where I live, there's this transition season where it's 40 degrees and rainy one day, and then it's 80 degrees and hot the next day. That's spring here in Idaho, where I live in the mountains. And that is also fall. So there are these big chunks of time that are months long where I want all of my options in front of me. And now I have all of my options in front of me. I was talking with one of my clients who also is local here, who she said, oh, I had to unpack my summer clothes. I just hadn't gotten around to it. But it's another way in which we waste our time on our things, packing things up and unpacking things, all the ways in which we spend our time dealing with our things, not just the constant washing and putting things away. But there are amazing, I didn't even realize it until after I went through this process, how much time I spent dealing with my stuff. And so a lot of the time that has freed up for me is time that I used to be dealing with my stuff, and I'm no longer dealing with my stuff, even though I'm still somebody who spends a lot of time on my home because it's the work, it's what I do, it's what I love to do. And so that's why I still spend a lot of time on my home, but I've freed up time in countless hours in which I used to think about how I needed to fix things and organize things and go through things. And that's just not the reality anymore. So when you have all of your stuff, all of your clothing in one closet, not only do you have access to everything that you need on any given day, but you don't have to spend the time to go through the tubs, because when that's the reality in your life, you don't have time for that anyway. And it's not exactly what you want to be doing. So that's a really powerful part of the process that I wanted to bring up since it came up there. One struggle, and this speaks a little bit to Lawrence's question earlier about the motivation to begin. And this is not just to begin. This is the motivation when you've been through part of the process and then you hit a stuck point and you're not really making any progress and you don't really know why, but you make the excuse that it's because you don't have enough time because all these other things came up, and they did. But when something's important, you make time for it. So when you're having a hard time motivating yourself, this is true whether or not you're just beginning or if you're in the middle of the process. But what I find is that I have a client that I'm working with, and she's having a hard time motivating, and her space itself, when you walk into her space, is pretty spacious. There's a lot of open spaces. There's almost too much open space. There's like big spaces that feel like maybe they need something, but it's not 100% clear yet. And then she has her closets, and her closets are so very full. I wish I don't have a picture in my slideshow of her closets, but I wish I did, because they're just packed to the gills. So it's spacious everywhere, but her closets are stuffed full, and she has a very hard time motivating to start. And so your space is a reflection of your body. It's a reflection of yourself. And you'll see that reflected in different ways. And this is why the Bagua map is a really powerful tool that I use with my clients. It's a diagnostic tool, because when you're struggling in a particular area of your life, if you're struggling in your career, if you're feeling stuck in your career, or if you're struggling in your relationship, feeling a lack of connection, if you're struggling in your health, wherever it is that you're struggling in your life, you can look at that particular area of your home and see what opportunities you have. Do you have a closet in the health area of your home that is just packed full? And have you been experiencing health problems that you just couldn't figure out? chances are when you clear out that space with the intention of opening up space for the opportunity to see what health issues are coming up, the opportunity to remedy some of those, chances are that's what's going to happen in your life. It's amazing. So I bring that up because your space is a reflection of your life. And so whenever you have a particular part of your space that's not working, it's interesting to see how that's reflected in your life. So for this particular client, she has her closets that are really packed full. She has a really hard time motivating. And what that is a reflection of really is when you have these closets that are packed full that you just want to shut the door on, that you don't want to visit, oftentimes in your inner being, in your emotional being, you will have these inner parts of yourself that you have shut the door on, things that happen to you, hurts that you have, everyone has them, that you have shut the door on, that you're not quite ready to open that door and air out. You're not quite ready to let those emotions arise in you and to let those things go. And so oftentimes when you have a lot of closets that are packed full and shut tight, you're also not paying attention to that emotional body and what's going on in your emotional self. Not exclusively, but it's so interesting the way that your body is a reflection of yourself. And so it really takes those baby steps of motivating, of taking that first step, doing that first thing to create some space, because that's going to create the opening that you need, the inspiration that you need, the energy that you need in order to complete the process. And for this, we're just talking about your closet and completing that process in your closet, what that looks like, the space that it brings, the energy that it brings. So that's something that comes up often for people, that motivation to begin, that motivation to get unstuck. And what that brings up for me also is that when I talked about earlier how the very first thing you do is talk about your big why. Why are you doing this? Why are you motivated to do this? What do you want to shift in your life? What's that growth edge for you where you want to be, but you're not quite there yet? Where are you struggling in your life and you want things to be easier? So you look at that big why, but then the second thing that you do is you really look at, I'm losing my train of thought here. I have it in my notes. So the second thing that you do is, where's your motivation? What's your end goal? The second thing that you do is you take those baby steps. How did I get here? Apologies, this happens to me every now and again, like everyone. But, such a good point to make. So when you're closet and you have your emotional baggage, it's important to start with your big why, and then it's important to just take those baby steps. It'll come back to me. Anyway, the one thing that I do want to talk about, but first I want to encourage everyone to put your question in. Tell me where you are. Actually, I'd love for everyone to tell me exactly where you are. Have you started getting into your clothing? Are you into your bottoms and your tops? Are you done with the process? Where are you in your space right now in the KonMari process, in the very beginning of looking at your closet, looking at your space? Maybe some of you are further along. Let me know where you are just so that I can speak to where you are. And if you haven't started, that's okay. You can say, I haven't started yet. Just let me know where you are so that I can speak to you where you are. So while that comes in, I wanted to talk about the resistance that comes up, because there's an incredible amount of resistance that comes up in this process. And oftentimes what I find is the resistance comes up before you even begin the process, or if you're feeling a little bit of a block, if you haven't touched your things in a while and you don't feel motivated to continue, you have this resistance that comes up to the process. And that is common for everyone, and it only comes in those stages of inaction. When you're thinking about what you have to do, but you're not doing it, that's when the resistance comes up. That's when a lot of the blocks will come up. When you really get into it and you're just picking one thing up, does this bring me joy? Does this not bring me joy? The attachments will come up. But the resistance piece is big before you actually begin. So I just wanted to touch on that because I know the resistance was coming up for a lot of people. So we have people at the beginning stage. We have people who have finished all their clothing except their jewelry. Okay, good. So we've got people mainly in their clothes. Anyone out there who is beyond their clothes? Just put that in the chat bar if so. So that resistance will come up from that place of inaction. So I always recommend that you just take that next baby step. You say, what is it that I need to do next? I need to touch my jewelry. Okay, schedule it in. When am I going to do that? I'm going to do that Thursday afternoon from 1 to 3. And then, 80% of the time you'll end up doing it then. 20% of the time you'll reschedule. But figure out what chunk of time you're going to do it. Schedule it in so that when you get to that time, you're excited. You know you're going to do that. And get excited about it, because here's the thing. The resistance that comes up brings up like, oh, is this going to be fun? I have to go through my stuff. And I don't know if that comes up for anybody, but the KonMari process is a big one. And when you start small, it helps you see that inspiration and that energy that is ever present throughout the process that you can tap into. But when you're looking at your space as a whole, I remember when I started the KonMari process, I did not really think it was possible to touch every single thing that I owned in any amount of time. I did not think that was possible. And we moved into a space that is plenty big, that fills up. That's what happens when you have a bigger space. And I did not think it was possible. And so the resistance comes up of like, oh, like I only have the stuff that I want. Why would I go through this process? And so really it's about that end goal of what you want to shift, because that resistance will come up for everyone who goes through this process, but it only comes up in that place of inaction. So when you get into the action part of things, it's a life changer. It's a game changer. So, okay. So if you have questions about where you are, if you're struggling in a particular thing, we have somebody who is at the beginning stage. We talked with Lawrence about how he's having a hard time motivating, which I'm so glad he brought up, because that comes up for a lot of people. And then somebody who's finished everything but jewelry. So wherever you are, if you're struggling, let me know where you're struggling. If you are feeling elated and fantastic and spacious in your closet, let me know that. Tell me where you are, because if there's not questions coming in, I have like maybe one other thing that I want to touch on, but we'll close in a little bit here. But I would love to answer your questions. I would love to hear where you are specifically so that I can help you get to that next step, because so much of this is just getting to that next step. When you're in a spot where you haven't done anything and you're feeling those blocks come up, it's getting to that next step. Which brings me, while I'm waiting for your questions to come in, what I had forgotten earlier. So you look at your big why when you're having a block around moving forward in your space, when you're having a block around that next step and making it happen. You look at your big why, and then what you do is whatever resistance is coming up for you. So I have a client that I'm working with, and she's feeling stuck on her papers. She hasn't gotten into her papers because it's a big project and it feels big, and she feels the weight of that. She's like, oh, I don't really want to do it. And she had this limiting belief that came up for her. I was trying to dig into the resistance of where she was to try to help her unblock, because there's always some sort of block that's coming up, some sort of limiting belief, some sort of belief that's resonating in your head that you maybe are aware of and maybe not. Most of the time you're not aware of the thoughts that are coming up. And they're all reinforcing these beliefs that we have. And oftentimes these beliefs come up that aren't even true in the first place. They're called limiting beliefs. They come up for everyone. So when you're feeling blocked, you look at the big why, and then you delve down into why you're feeling, why don't you want to do the thing that you really think you want to do? Why don't you want to get into your papers? Why don't you want to start? Why don't you want to get into your jewelry, wherever you are? And you see what comes up. You just write down all the reasons why you don't want to do it, all the reasons that are coming up for you. And for this particular client, what came up for her was that she was afraid. She had this fear that she was going to throw something away that they needed, paperwork. And that's potentially a real fear. And when that's going through your subconscious, that's a big block that's going to make it really difficult for you to start. But when you bring it into your conscious mind, when you bring it into your awareness, and you can be aware of that, whether or not it's true, whether or not it's a belief, it's certainly a belief that's limiting her. Whether or not it's true is debatable. But when it's in her awareness, all of a sudden you bring those limiting beliefs into your awareness, and it enables you to move forward. So if you're having a hard time starting, or if you're feeling stuck, it's a really good idea to journal on where you are right now, where you want to be, and why you're not there. I'm going to say that again. Where are you right now? Where do you want to be in an ideal world? And why are you not there? Because the why are you not there, that question brings up a whole slew of limiting beliefs. I promise. So it enables you to see the ways in which your subconscious mind is blocking you from moving forward. Because really that's the mental piece of the game. This is why I help people through the process. If people could get through the process 100% on their own, I would say read the book, do the process, then let's shift your space and get you some amazing results here. But really it's a matter of helping people get through those process, unblock their beliefs that are holding them back. So there's a couple things coming through, which is fantastic. So yeah, so one, okay, so we have one person on the line who's looking to let go of 20 pounds of the weight. And I'm so glad that this came up, actually, because there is this, I mentioned how your space is a reflection of yourself. It's a reflection of your body. And that is true of, your physical body, and it's true of your emotional body. And so, in the work that I do, I'm trying to think of what story to tell you, but in the work that I do, there is an incredible correlation between letting go of the things that no longer serve you and then shedding the pounds that no longer serve you. And I've worked with a number of people who started out heavier than they wanted to be. And this process alone, this process alone of the KonMari decluttering process and letting go of physical things in your environment allows you to let go of physical things on your body. And it's so interconnected, because sometimes that might be true because it opens up a door for you that allows you to see that you want to put different things into your body. You want to nourish your body in different ways. So it opens up different doors. So it might have to do with that. It might have to do with something else entirely. I have a client who, after she did the KonMari process, and after she made a bedroom in the course that I run, we make your bedroom into an oasis. We create a place for you that is all your own. We create a place that is incredibly rejuvenating, because your bedroom is the second most important place in feng shui. We spend a third of our lives there sleeping, and we're at our most vulnerable state when we're in our bedroom. And so there are all these subtle stressors in our space that can affect how well we sleep, that can affect our relationships. And those two things are hugely impactful. If we don't sleep well, it's difficult to do your work well. It's difficult to be patient with your loved ones. It's difficult to do anything if you're not sleeping well. And if you are experiencing issues in your relationship, it's difficult to feel supported. It can impact your life in lots and lots of ways. So we look at the bedroom specifically, and it's a place that I love to look at, because there are all these really concrete things that you can shift about your space in order to change how well you sleep and how supported you feel in your relationship. So I bring that up because the client that I was working with who had on extra pounds, she didn't ever, in the conversations that we had, she didn't ever say, I want to lose 20 pounds. I'm doing this process because I want to lose 20 pounds. But she did have a lot of issues that she was working through, a lot of this kind of like unpeeling of the onion, unpeeling of these layers of issues that she was ready to deal with, because it's always what you're ready to deal with. That exterior part of the onion, it's always what you're ready to deal with. You peel that away and there will be more that you have to deal with, but then you're ready for that point, right? So there's whatever you're ready for is what's available to you. And she was really ready to be in a relationship with somebody who saw her, who loved her. She felt like she'd never been in a relationship with someone who really saw her for her true authentic self. And that maybe had to do with her relationships, and maybe had to do with the way in which she saw herself. So we worked on her relationship area a lot. And the opposite side of the Bagua map that you placed down that we talked about earlier is your self-knowledge and wisdom. So whenever you're wanting to work on one thing, your relationships, you're also going to look at the opposing side, that self-knowledge and wisdom, the way in which you feel about yourself. Are you really judgmental of yourself? Are you really critical? Do you love yourself? Because if you don't, then no one else can love you, right? It's all these kind of mindset pieces that we work through in our life. And so she was working through an incredible amount of that through the process of going through her things. And it was incredible, the change that I saw in her. It was not something that she had written down on paper, like, I want to glow, I want to lose 15 pounds. But those were all the things that were happening to her. She was slimming up. She had a closet full of clothes that she could manage. Before, her clothes had just been a huge pile always. She said she had never been able to keep an organized closet. And after the process for months, it's been a year now, and she says still to this day, I'm able to keep an organized closet. And it just has to do with having only the things that you love. And what happens for a lot of people who have a closet full of clothing that they don't love, and this was very true for me beforehand, is in the morning, you'd go to pick out your clothing, or if you pick out your clothing the night before, it'd be the night before, you go to pick out your clothing, and I would try on a bunch of different outfits and wouldn't really feel great. And so I'd take them off. Would I hang all of them back up? No. So then I'd start the pile, or maybe the pile was already started, so it's easy for that to collect because like attracts like. And kind of settle on something that I sort of felt okay in, but didn't bring me a ton of joy. But for this particular client, she was able to keep her closet organized. She shed at least 15 pounds. She was glowing from the inside out. And she found a relationship with somebody that she's still together with, who she really feels like for the first time she's really seen for her true self. So there's so much that this process does. It's so your life is all interconnected. So in terms of wanting to lose 20 pounds, yes, this could potentially do that for you. I don't make any promises about what it's going to do for you in terms of your weight, because that can be connected to a lot of different things, but it opens the door to, if that's your motivation, Lawrence, I believe that's Lawrence, if that's your motivation, that's your big why. I want to look good in my clothes. I want to feel good in my body. I want to lose 20 pounds. Whatever your big why is, put that out there. Have that, this is my ideal. This is where I want to be. Because the clearer that is, the more detailed that is, the easier it is to get there. There's incredible research around the neuroscience of habit change, the neuroscience of achieving what you want to achieve. And here's the thing, when you envision your ideal world, when you allow yourself to really get clear on what it is that you want in your life, then you are creating new neural pathways. Because our same old neural pathways of, oh, I want to do this, but I can't do that because of this, those same old paths that you're following, those are your neurosynaptic connections. But there's an incredible amount of science around creating new neurosynaptic connections. And when you envision your future, when you envision your ideal world, you are creating new neurosynaptic connections. Every time you think about that, you're creating your brain is going down that pathway, and it makes it easier for you to get there because it's a neural pathway that you've traveled before. It makes it easier for you to achieve your goals. It allows you to see the opportunities that you want. And so you have to get clear on your why. So if you want to lose 20 pounds, if you want to feel great in your clothes, if you want to feel great in your body, great. But here's the thing about that catches some people up. When you're going through your clothing, this happens for a lot of people. You have clothing that fits you today. You have clothing that fit you 6 months ago. You have clothing that fit you 10 years ago. And oftentimes we're holding on to that clothing because we want to fit into that clothing again. And believe it or not, I have been there, having been through 2 pregnancies over the last 7 years, an incredible amount of body change. And that's slightly different than weight, but just having the stuff because you know you're going to fit into it eventually, or you really want to fit into it eventually. So here's the thing about that. I don't tell people that you have to get rid of all that stuff, right? You can keep some of that stuff if it brings you joy. So if I have an article of clothing that doesn't fit me now, that fit me 10 years ago, that I really want to fit into, if it brings me joy, then I'll keep it. But the thing about that is that most of those things will not bring you joy. And I'll tell you why. Most of those things are so dormant, they're so stagnant, they have not been touched or loved in so long that that is one reason why they don't feel loved when you pick them up, because they're not loved. B, what happens is when you pick up that article of clothing and you have all the mental chatter going on around this used to fit me. I really want to fit into this again. As I tell that story, as I have that story going through my head, as I say those things physically out loud, it is weighing my body down when I say those things. It is not making me feel good. It's making me feel like I can't achieve that. And so most often those things aren't going to bring you joy because it's making you feel like you have this dream that you have not been able to achieve. And the thing about achieving that dream, it has nothing to do with whether or not you hold on to those clothes. Those clothes are not actually motivating you to fit into them. Those clothes are making you feel bad about where you are currently. So for the most part, not 100%. Occasionally there will be something you're like, I love this and I'm going to fit into this someday. But that weight change, it has to do with, in terms of achieving the goals that you want, it has to do with being able to visualize those ideal goals, to envision them over and over and over again. It has to do with surrounding yourself only by the things that bring you joy, because that is you saying, if you let go of a whole wardrobe of things that fit you 10 years ago, that is you saying, when I am that weight again in 6 months, when I'm that weight again in a year, because if that is your goal, 90% of the time, if you are motivated enough, you can get there, right? It has to do with so many different things. But whether or not you hold on to those clothes doesn't have anything, is not going to have any bearing on you becoming that weight again. In fact, it's probably going to hold you back from becoming that weight again. And here's the thing that happens. A lot of people hold on to those things, and then they realize, either when they're going through the KonMari process or down the line, that when they get to that point of fitting into those clothes again, styles have changed. You're a decade older. What you want to wear has changed and shifted. So you holding on to those things is holding you back from becoming that person that you want to be. So it's not going to, so it doesn't help you to hold on to those things unless those are things that bring you joy. So this is really good for you, Lawrence, because you can feel into the why. And I think the why for you has to do with feeling good in your body and looking good in your body and feeling good in your clothing. And your clothing has so much bearing on that. There's so much tied up in your clothing in terms of how you put yourself into the world, how you feel about your own self, what you put on when it's just you in your own home. And that, I used to be the queen of downgrading my clothing, saying, oh, this has a stain, or this has a hole, or this is too big for me, so I'll just put it into my loungewear. This is the clothing I'll wear when it's just me in my own home. And since it's just me, it doesn't matter. And so I had a big stack of clothing that I wore at home, and I was like, oh, I'm so comfortable, I feel so good. But what would happen is that, and some of you may have heard this story, apologies if so, but what would happen is I work from home, and so I would be working from home in my kind of like stuff that I didn't feel all that good in. So I'm less productive and feel less good about myself in my work, and in my work that's really important for me to feel good about me. But inevitably, somebody would stop by, like a package would get dropped off, or somebody would stop by the house, or I'd have to run out for an errand really quick, and I'd be dressed in something that I just didn't want to be seen in. And so it really highlights the way in which we don't show up for ourselves in the way that we should. When it's just you in your own home, you want to be wearing clothing that you absolutely love. It doesn't have to be a cocktail dress. It doesn't have to be a suit. It doesn't have to be anything special. It just has to be something that brings you joy. So Lawrence, feel into your why, get really clear on your why, envision what that looks like, what that feels like, and probably it's going to be easy for you to start. Get into day 2, get into your tops and your bottoms, but I think that'll be really helpful for you. Okay, so Christine says, I've been working on jewelry all day today. I'm not really feeling joy about most of it, but not really feeling bad feelings either. I have about 100 items in my purge pile, but I'm struggling to let go of the rest. That's huge, Christine. I love it. So I'm so glad you brought this up too, because a few things around jewelry. And then we're going to close up pretty soon. I want to honor everyone's time. We're definitely going to end by 4:30, maybe a little bit earlier unless some more questions come in. But so not really feeling joy about most of it. So that's fantastic. You've got a huge pile of stuff that, that you're ready to get rid of, but you're struggling to let go of the rest. So a few things about that I would say is I've had people, and I'm just I got a little strain in my back the other day, so I'm going to sit here. So I'm angling so I can see you. But I have a client that I worked with who had an incredible amount of jewelry, a couple clients, but who had an incredible amount of jewelry. And most of it was jewelry that had been gifted to her. So her mom really liked to buy her things and really liked jewelry and would give her this expensive jewelry. And she wasn't quite sure what to do with it because it wasn't her style. She didn't love it all. She didn't wear it ever, but she felt like she was not a bad daughter, but she felt guilty getting rid of it, as a gift. So a few things there that I want to bring up. Briefly, I'll go into gifts. If you've been with me for long at all, you probably heard about gifts, but I think it bears repeating because gifts are one thing that people have a really hard time letting go of. So a few things. Gifts are, the purpose of a gift is in giving it to somebody. When I give somebody a gift, I don't have a gifty thing around here. When I give somebody a gift, I'm doing it because I thought of that person and I really appreciate that person and I want to express how much I appreciate that person. That's the purpose of a gift. The purpose, once a gift is given, its purpose has been fulfilled. And Marie Kondo talks about this a little bit. And so there's kind of a Marie Kondo side of things and then a feng shui side of things and the gifting point. But so the purpose has been fulfilled. Here's the thing, when you hold on to gifts, and I know you didn't mention gifts here, but I just want to bring it up because it's so apropos for 99% of the people that I work with. When you're holding on to a gift, something that somebody has given you that you don't love, then you are associating not loving something with that person. You're probably also associating the guilt that you feel around wanting to let go of that thing, but not being able to let go of it. You're associating that guilt with the person. And that's not how the person wants you to feel about them. That person gave you a gift because they love you. They appreciate you. They wanted to tell you that through a gift. So it's really important to let go of the items that have an association of guilt that you're holding onto because you think you should. It's really important to let those items go because you probably have something else that reminds you of that person that you have, that you love, and every time you look at that thing, you'll be reminded of that person and how much you love them. You don't want your mom doesn't want you to associate her with these feelings of guilt around not letting go of things. So I was reminded of that because of the jewelry piece. But here's the thing about the jewelry that's interesting. Let's see, Christine, I actually have some questions for you. Do you wanna pop on so that I can ask you some questions? Let me unmute you and see if you're interested in that. And you don't have to if you don't want to, but. Hi, Christine.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, and you know what? Let me just pop in my headphones because I have my mic on, so I can't actually hear you, but I think it's just because I don't have my headphones in. Give me a second. You can tell these are not the headphones that I generally use because they are all tangled up. That's why I stopped using these ones. Actually, they probably don't bring me joy. I should feel into that a little bit. Let's see. Okay. Let me see if this helps. Okay, Christine, you there?
Do you have sound?
Oh, I can't hear you still. Okay, let me do one thing. Here, let me do this. Try again.
Yes.
Oh, okay, now I can hear you. So I unplugged my mic, so my sound might not be quite as good, but you should all be able to hear me pretty clearly. So, Christine, hi, welcome.
Hello.
I'm so glad you're here. So I just had some questions about the jewelry piece. Why do you feel like you're struggling to let go of the rest? Or do you need to let go of the rest? What is that?
Well, so it's kind of interesting because I think I had a much easier time with every other category than this one. So, and some of it is, I know that I have read Marie Kondo's book, and I know that she usually leaves mementos to last. And I think that may be some of this, a lot of what I'm having trouble letting go of, I don't love, but it's inherited. And so there's weird issues with me going and selling it.
Right.
Even though, frankly, that's what I would like to do. Because I'm never going to wear this stuff.
So tell me about the weird issues. What is that? What comes up for you when you think about, I want to sell this, but that doesn't feel right? Why doesn't that feel right to you?
Well, I have actually previously sold quite a bit of stuff that I have inherited.
Mm-hmm.
And I got over it really quite quickly once the deed was done. But I don't know. I used to make jewelry in the past, and I really haven't in the last year at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think part of it is, well, I kind of like part of it. So if I took it, actually, while we've been sitting here, I took some things apart.
Right, right. Okay.
I thought, well, maybe if I took it apart and I could make something else and it would be something that sort of honored everyone and a piece that I loved. But am I really going to do that? I don't know that I will.
Right. Well, so a few different things there. And so is making jewelry something that you would like to do again?
A little, but not, I don't know enough to make it a true priority.
Yeah. Okay. Because, a few things there. Oftentimes what happens with people when they go through the process is all the things that all those kind of livelihoods, those hobbies, those things that they really enjoy doing, all of a sudden they have more space and time for those things. And so they start doing them again.
Sure.
But in going through the process in things as a whole, in kind of a larger scale of things, jewelry for you, since it was also a hobby, might be its own separate category. Like you mentioned, could be mementos, but it could even be like a miscellaneous category hobby, which is something that you touch later on because it's easier.
Sure.
So sometimes it's just because you're touching it at the wrong time. It's a little too early, and so that's okay. But sometimes through the process, what I found is I had a lot of different hobbies. I'm a crafter. I like to do things with my hands. And I had a lot of materials building up, a lot of different things building up. And what I found through the process is that I was able to really cull down the ones that didn't actually bring me joy, that weren't my priority, which meant that all of a sudden I had more space. I just have one or two little crafty like things that I actually want to do it the way that I actually want to spend my time. So it created more space for those things. So for you, do you feel like jewelry is one of those things that you want to create more space for, or one of those things that might fall by the wayside?
I suspect that it may end up falling by the wayside.
Right.
There might be a couple more things that I might create in the future, but it's not, I think it is one of those things that the time for that hobby has passed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And probably and I'm also a crafty person too, so I have knitting stuff and embroidery stuff, and I suspect that when I get to that section, that most of that is going to go away.
Which makes space for all the stuff you do want. It's lovely.
Sure.
So I heard you say, two conflicting things, which comes up often for people. So both that you have some sort of hesitancy to sell some of that stuff, but also that in the past you've sold stuff and you got over it pretty quickly. What do you feel like what's that hesitation? Is it that people are going to judge you, like your family, or?
Some of it. Actually, my mother has given me pieces in the past. My mother does give me a lot of jewelry. And she specifically said that I better not sell this one because she knows that I just recently went and visited my parents because my brother's been ill. And they both, while I was visiting, gave me quite a bit of their jewelry and told me they wanted me to have it. And I told them I'm not going to wear it, being very honest about it.
Right.
And this time they did not repeat the don't sell it thing. But of course, at the same time, I'm thinking in the back of my head, my parents actually need this money. So, but they're not going to sell it because they think that I need to inherit it someday.
Right.
That goes with a lot of I'm a much more minimalist person than the rest of my family is. So there's a disconnect with gift giving in general, put it that way.
Yes. So a few things, the client that I worked with who was really able to go through her jewelry and cull things down, she was at a point in her life where she was ready to kind of begin some harder conversations with her mom around that sort of thing, because her mom had the tendency to give her a lot of clothing and a lot of jewelry, which can be a good thing. But not everyone is in a place where that's what they want to do. But I want to plant that seed because sometimes this process enables you to have more, to be more clear of a communicator in a kind way, but to just be really honest with your own joy and what that looks like. So that could be helpful at some point down the line or not. But so they didn't repeat the don't sell it this time. So you're thinking about it, but you're feeling bad about it.
Yes.
Okay. So
because I think they gave it to me knowing that was very likely what was going to happen.
Right. Well, and that's the other thing, is that jewelry is a category where you can make a lot of money. Like,
oh yes, in the past, I have done very well with things that I've sold.
Right.
And so I know I could use that money right now for other things that I need. So
here's the thing that I would do. I would go through the process just like you do with your clothing, in terms of picking up each piece and deciding if it brings you joy without judgment, and just making your two piles. This brings me joy. This doesn't bring me joy. Obviously, the stuff that brings you joy, you keep. And then you can look at the second pile and you can see what it's composed of. Like, these are the ones that I was gifted. These are the ones that were inherited. These are the ones I would sell. These are the ones I would give away. And what sometimes is helpful is that in your pile of things that are joyful, you probably will have a piece of jewelry that was inherited. Maybe not. Oftentimes, you have a piece that can be reflective of the whole in a lot of things, something that does really bring you joy. And there's a lot that comes up for people in mementos, but in jewelry also, in different categories around the way that you grew up, and because no matter how we're brought up, we always have things that we love about our upbringing and things that we don't love about our upbringing, no matter what, and sometimes you're heavier in one than the other. And so there are things that you are ready to let go, to shed from that, and there are things that you really want to hold on to. And so your jewelry can be like that, in a sense, like, I really want to hold on to this piece, but this stuff I'm ready to shed. And it's reflective of this bigger things in my family that I'm ready to shed. And that's why it can be more difficult to let it go, because it's reflective of something bigger than the physical object.
Sure, I see what you mean.
So do you feel like, because I think that the interesting part is that I think that most of it isn't necessarily what, there's what other people will think of you if you do what you think you should do, or there's what you will think of you. So really it's about being okay and being happy. Like, I kept this one piece, I took this one piece apart because I really loved this one pendant on it, and I made it into another necklace that I love now, and it really reflects me. And that's one way for your upbringing, for your ancestry for you to really integrate it into yourself in much deeper ways. Does that help?
It does. It helps to just articulate that I was having a problem, instead of just constantly moving the piles around.
Yes.
Which is what I've done for the last hour or two.
Right. Yeah. So you can go through that process and see what that looks like. And it might mean that you end up holding on to some of the stuff that doesn't bring you joy, or it might mean that you're ready to let go of all that. But I will say that those things, I don't know if they fall into mementos because they're not mementos for you, but they fall further down the line because there are those attachments. And that's,
sure.
That's what happens as you start getting down the line, is you have attachments to things that are reflections of your past. And it's this matter of saying, I'm ready to let go of the weight of that and carry on with the parts that bring me joy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Thanks for joining me live. I appreciate that. All right. Anybody else have questions or want to chime in with anything before we close for the day? I'm so glad that that you brought that up, Christine. It's so helpful to talk with people face to face and to really hear what those struggles are, because it's always deeper than just the physical object itself. So it's been so fantastic being here with you all today. I've really enjoyed this time, and I trust and hope that you've gotten some good tidbits for you in your own closet, in your own space. And I want to offer, for those of you who are still here with me live, I'm just so thrilled that you're here. I want to offer you a way to connect with me if you're ready to take your space to the next step, or if you're ready to talk about an area where you struggle in your space or you struggle in your life. I'm offering up free discovery calls, which is a half-an-hour phone call with me. It's something that I love to do because it allows me to really connect with where you are, what the particular struggles are with your space, and then what that shift looks like in order to get where you want to be, to get where you're going. Because oftentimes we get really comfortable being right where we are with life struggles happening and not really it's like we're accommodating these aggravations that are happening in our life. And it's really powerful to identify the areas in which you're accommodating aggravations in your life, these struggles in your life that you're just saying, well, it's easier to just sit here and not change than it is to do something about it. So these phone calls are really fantastic ways to really get deep into what your struggle is and what that shift might look like for you. So they're really clarifying. I love doing them. So I'm just going to paste for you the, let's see. I'm going to paste for you in the chat bar a place where you can sign up for a discovery call. And it's just a 30-minute phone call where we get to talk about where you are in your space, your struggles, whether or not that's with the KonMari process and decluttering, or whether that's as a bigger whole, because there's just so much that I can help you with in those 30 minutes, and I can also really help you identify how to move forward. So it's really fantastic time. I love doing them, and would love to have you sign up. And I'm thrilled with the size of our group today, because there's a chance that I have spaces enough for all of you. Most of the time, there's not space for everyone to sign up. So it's a $350 value. It's an incredible way to talk with me. And I want to mention, for those of you in the Closet Makeover, for those of you who finish the Closet Makeover all 5 days by this coming Saturday and fill out the exit survey, and all of that is on the website for you, I will enter you in a drawing to win a free consultation with me, a free coaching call with me, which is an hour-long session where we can get really deep into where you are and how I can help you shift. So finish your closet challenge and fill out the exit survey so that I can enter you in that drawing. I would love to connect with you one way or the other. It'd be so fantastic. So thank you so much for joining me today. It's been really wonderful, and I'm sure that I will get to talk with you all soon. Bye-bye.